Hey, this is Elisa Zhang from Easy FI University. If you want to learn how to use your small axe to build an empire, you should be listening to the Small Axe podcast with my good friend Nico.
Hey, guys, this is your boy Nico, your host of the Small Axe Podcast. Hey, this show is dedicated to helping you become the best multifamily real estate investor that you can be. Now, whether you want to be an active or a passive investor, this show will give you all the resources you need to help sharpen your axe and build your own personal empire. So you know what? Sit back and relax and enjoy this show. And hey, if you find value in it, I would love for you to subscribe, leave a 5-star rating, and write a review. I love you guys. Hey, Small Axe people, this is your boy Nico, and I am hanging out again for the second time with Elisa Zhang. So I wanted to get her back on the show to kind of catch up with her and hear what she's been working on. It's been a while since we spoke, and she's always doing some really cool and inspiring stuff for you, my listeners. So I'm excited to get her on. Elisa, what's up?
Hi, Nico. Great to be back.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you back. Now, I don't really remember the last time you were on, but it was a while ago. So perhaps you can either, catch people up to what you've been working on or kind of start from the beginning for a couple of minutes and just share your story.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I will do both. I think just for a listener who hasn't checked out our other episode yet, just a little bit background on me. I used to be an IT worker before as a product manager working at the Fortune 500 company and a graduate from computer engineer. Always thought about, hey, having a stable job when I graduate, that's kind of like the path. I think like a lot of us are when we started the journey. And then later on found out, when I was pregnant with my kid and when I had my firstborn, and things just didn't quite make sense because, I was spending more time commuting versus spending time with my newborn kid. So there's got to be a better way. So up until that point, I kind of invested mindlessly into single family homes. And then shortly after the realization, it helped me kind of reevaluate my life trajectory and setting some goals for investment. So starting to trade that off with some multifamily holdings. First, we're just owning by myself, and then slowly kind of grow from smaller property to a little bit smaller multifamily, 10, 12 units or so. And then once we went outside of state, we start doing some syndication. So kind of fast forward, we now have 18 properties in Texas and Arizona state, and some personal holdings in Washington still. And we have about close to 3,000 unit right now. It kind of comes and goes. So that's kind of where I am and the journey where I'm on. We're now really passionate about teaching financial independence for our investors and et cetera as well. So we're making some courses that's coming up, but mostly kind of focus on education to providing an alternative investment vehicle for our investors to, share the journey with us. Yeah.
That's awesome, Elisa. And you have two kids though now, right?
Yeah, I have two kids, one boy and one girl, and they're a handful. Yeah.
I have one. She's a handful. I love her to death and I love everything about it, but it is a lot of work. And I just got a dog, which is also way more work than I thought was going to be. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
so originally you were trading, it was difficult, right? You had a new baby and you're working so much and you decided something's got to change. And this is where it
Mm,
really, really, it kind of strikes a chord with a lot of my listeners as well. It's like we're
mhm,
grinding away and just something's not right. So we do all of eventually stumble upon some sort of alternative investment. You, I, and my listeners
mhm.
chose multifamily for that. Now, you mentioned a little bit at first you were doing some single family stuff. I think you were doing it with your husband originally.
Yeah, with my husband when I first invested, it's just regular old savings and accumulated over the time. Now we did invest in the right time in 2009, which I think the opportunities kind of mirroring each other. There may be such an opportunity coming up soon, if not already in some markets. Yeah.
I remember this, and we were talking also about you were building your portfolio in Texas and Arizona, and then I believe at that time when we spoke, you had like an in-house management company or something, or you were taking over a management company. Was that the case?
Yeah, we were contemplating taking over the management, so that switchover was pretty slow. And then ever since then, now actually starting January 1st, we've actually moved our portfolio to a third party manager. That being said, all the work that we have done up to that point, which is really when we first started, we were trying to focus on field, getting the right personnel in places and et cetera on field, and then moving that towards, then building up the back office. What we noticed is and it was a very short stint, we kind of did that, we were in the transition for about 4 months, and but really accelerated for about 2 months when we were able to kind of change all the personnel on the ground after hire a senior manager and then this and that. So the third party that we have selected, and the reason why I was going self-managing the route was just lack of finding a unicorn property management company that checks all the boxes and criteria that we have. And but since then, we actually miraculously through our senior manager, things happen for a reason. And then, we actually found this perfect third party manager that fits for us, may not fit for everybody. And they have agreed to actually build on top of the system that we spent all these time built and further enhance it. So essentially, it's that back end piece is the most support that we're getting from them, including, inputting invoices, et cetera, like the whole accounting team. And that's a lot of work. And then it's going to take typically about a year to do these if you like create your own property management company. I've kind of helped with a few of my partners doing small parts of these ventures before. But when you have a good third party manager, there's no reason for you to create a property management yourself. And in this case, they're building on top of the progress that we're doing. So it really is the fastest way to get us to the endpoint. So we're really excited for this transition right now, but just want to kind of share some of these lessons because a lot of people kind of, hey, going after a couple of property management company, it didn't work, going in-house, but there's also challenges in-house, and then going outside of house. This way, it's a really nice kind of hybrid. We have on-ground staff that we trust, that we have a lot of hand in putting together. And then now the back end office of which we have vetted through the third party managers. And, that allows us to kind of focus on what we really needed to focus on, which is asset management itself. Yeah.
Awesome. Great insights there. And thank you for sharing and being open. It's tough, as operators, there are times when you need to pivot, and sometimes it's just you just don't want to do it, but you're making the right choice, the hard choice, which is the right choice. And I'm sure that
Mhm.
right now during this transitional period is probably overwhelming for you guys.
Yeah, it was the last 2 months, but it's kind of calmed down a little bit more. I think one thing I would say as having a well-seasoned third party manager, in this case, we chose a firm that was there for 42 years, is that they already have a system built in the back end handling. So when that takeover happens, it just happens a lot more fast, like a lot faster. So on our side of a house, there's a lot of transition handling, but largely compared to in December, we're actually a lot more relaxed because you get some bandwidth back and doing what you're supposed to be doing. Yeah.
Oh, thank God. And the holidays are so tough. It's like everything seems to like it's just overwhelming during the holiday season, pleasing everybody,
Hmm.
getting your work done, making sure your business is running smoothly. It's like
Right.
that time of the year is not easy. So kudos, you passed that. All right,
Yeah,
Elisa.
yeah, definitely. Especially when you combine the Texas freeze, that's
Hmm.
it's always a fun one. Yeah.
Where are you located now?
I still live in Seattle right now. I built my team pretty intentionally. So on our asset team wise, everybody kind of works remotely. Although we do have a pretty big concentration of Seattle employees over here, just because by proximity, that's, how we hire people. But the concept I had was really, hey, if I wanted to get rid of my W-2 job that was really rigid with location and time, want to create an opportunity for my employees to have at least some sort of flexibility to work remotely. And I think COVID just kind of normalized that. for us, I think as asset managers, keeping on the numbers are very important. That being said, we do have boots on the ground. We have property managers. Prior to that, we have pretty heavy hand link with property manager over there, some of our asset managers in the local market. So it kind of checks the boxes for boots on the ground. But honestly, like a lot of people think, hey, when asset managing a property, you got to be boots on the ground. That is important on your first couple of deals. But once you kind of build that local network of partners, contractors, and etc., it's less important than you staying on the books and making sure all the metrics you're looking at them frequently. Yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. And so one of my partners is a project manager for the US Army. He's done
Mhm.
$750 million of overseeing, project management all around the country from where he's
Wow.
based in California. So he's doing it for us now, the same exact thing he does for his job. He's doing it for us now in Florida from California. And I cannot
Mhm.
believe what he's been able to do. It's like
Right.
incredible. You don't have to be there. We do have boots on the ground as well that go on site, but you're absolutely right. It's not totally necessary. So for you listening out there, you can do it. Elisa, how many acquisitions did you have in 2022?
I don't remember. I don't recall. Probably like seven or eight of
Oh my
these.
God.
Yeah, like because it's a lot of we also have some disposition as well. So when you're doing the disposition selling, you're also rolling your investors forward into another investment because majority of the investor made a good returns. They want to do that. So that helped facilitate our acquisition as well. So it's pretty busy in 2022. Yeah, definitely. And then I think at 2023, it's going to be a little bit quieter for the first quarter when we can kind of focus on a little bit this transition, operation excellency, putting some system in places, and then we charged up, ready to go for like, you know, second, third quarter, fourth quarter of the year. Yeah.
Awesome. Did you experience any challenges with lending as many other operators did, meaning coming to the closing table or right before closing, you had some terms being changed on you?
We were lucky enough, not a lot. There's only one minor retrade, like we lost the 25 base points per se on the deal. It was in the biggest swing time during the time, about June timeframe when there's a big swing change in the market. So it's reasonable. So, and we have locked down the property for over 4 months. So it's reasonable so that during that swing time, I think I would attribute that to just building a very good long-term relationship with our lender. We work with Arbor a lot directly. We've had 7 loans with them over the span of years. So there's a lot of more willingness to come to the table and negotiate and restructure the deal so it still makes sense and keeping the number intact even in a time when it's a lot of retrades are happening. So I think a relationship is really a core of us doing a business, sometimes to a fault, but I think we benefit more from like just trusting that long-term relationships than suffering from that. Yeah.
That's awesome. Really, really
Mhm.
awesome. I think relationships are huge, and I'm constantly talking to the lenders that I've been working with as well, just to get a finger on the pulse of what's happening, what's going on, and just maintain that relationship. We were also pretty fortunate. We got some pretty good terms. Really
Mhm.
excited. Now, Elisa, you mentioned some dispositions. Were any of those like full cycle syndications or?
Yeah, they are full cycle deals that we've been exiting, every single year we have a couple projects in the pipeline that exits, sells, So I think even in this environment, we're looking at dispositioning of a couple assets on our, list because they're mature, they're, stabilized, mature. And I think a lot of people would be like, well, why don't you hold on for a year or 2 years and doing that? But I think in terms of capital realization, it's like at the end of the day, it's about profit. So if you're already making what you projected profit within 2 or 3 years, you'd rather just release and not carry the risk and then moving forward and redeploy that capital right within the year for tax reasons. And I think, at any market, there's always selling and buying. If the number makes sense, like you don't want to be too greedy because who knows where the market's going to go. So if you already have this deal and you're hitting your projected number, you should considering exit them, even though sure you may be able to sell a little bit more, waiting for a little bit longer, but how would you know you're waiting for 2 years or 3 years? And time is money in this business because well, we don't know all know, but the internal like the IRR calculations on the return a large portion of it is about the time that you're holding. So for a shorter period of time, if you can make, let's say, 80% return versus holding on for 3 more years for 100% return, like the 80% currently is all day long in terms of
Mhm.
velocity of money. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Very well put. A lot of people don't take that into consideration. The IRR calculation is not easy to do. Obviously, nobody really does it. It's built into Excel, but it's so important. The
Mm,
time value of money, right? Money in your hand today that can be redeployed into another investment is worth so much. And there's a value to that, right? So
but
well said.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes like, I would say we're not always right. So when we don't follow that principle, sometimes you kind of get it whacked a little bit from the back end where you're like, oh, geez, if I put this deal last year when I was ready, it could have made a lot more, right? So like these kind of kicking yourself moment, just a good reminder of like, hey, when you made the return, you should just try to exit or execute your business plan. Yeah.
Definitely. Elisa, you mentioned your dispositions, and I kind of want to stick here for another minute. Do you have a certain strategy? Like, did you 1031 people out? Because you mentioned reinvesting, and I know that there's a strategy to doing it, and you got to get people in with a tick and this and that. Did you do any
Mhm.
1031s?
We do a variety of things. There's just the normal, there's nothing wrong with just normally selling it and ask the investors to reinvest. So as investor listening to this, it's like if you sold a property in the same year and you reinvest the same amount, let's just say you exit a project and you made an 80% return and then reinvest your principal as well as your profit into next deal. Let's say there's something, cost segregation, it's a whole entire different topic, but there's something called a cost segregation. We do that with bonus depreciation. And if you bought another deal that had 40% tax write-offs or K1 generated from these cost segregation, then if you do the math, if you reinvest the whole amount, you pretty much don't have to pay much of the tax. So it's like 1031 exchange, but doesn't have to adhere to 1031 exchange's restriction. The 40, because in 1031 exchange, there's 45 days. Within that time, you have to identify the next project. But in this case, you can sell it, wait until the end of year, before the end of the year, and just as long as you reinvest into another deal in the same year, you can kind of do similar to that. That obviously takes very good estimation and preparation, working with your own CPA on this. As any of projects that we exit, we consult with our CPA. We usually try to get it estimated, and nobody knows the exact amount, so it's very emphasis on estimated tax consequences and how much proximately we'll have to reinvest into another particular deal in order to kind of generate like how much tax that you're paying, etc. Nothing is precise, but we try to facilitate these conversations a little bit more easier using, vendors, trusted vendors, and etc. Other ways to do this. So I've also have, we own properties. Some of my investor who's been invested with me since beginning of the time, they're now larger investors because throughout the years the profits been made. So I may be setting up a partnerships TIC, like tenant in common structure for them. So then it's flexible in the future where they can exchange in and exchange out of that. So these are for smaller projects, fewer partnerships, usually no more than 4 people or 4 parties. So we do that as well. We're likely going to probably see some syndication 1031 exchange coming up soon. We do some research around these topics. So, we want to make sure like our T's are crossed and etc. That's quite a bit of work. And we only want to do that on our smaller deal because if you are dealing with like 200 investors, that's an entire different beast in terms of the calorie that is needed to kind of consume that versus you already have a vehicle like cost segregation to do so. So it really kind of depends. And then the more you kind of get into the 1031 exchange topic, and there's more variety and complexities and things that you can deal with and creative ways that you can deal with, right? So the law and the tax is not always black and white. There's always one way to kind of make certain things work.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love it. That's the creative mind and the entrepreneurial mind coming together right there. Really well said, Lisa. I love it. Let's talk a little bit about what you think is. I know you mentioned you a little bit about how you think 2023 is going to go. Did you guys set goals or How are you looking at
We
the?
we are kind of running a little behind on this because the transition for property manager happened right in the beginning of the year. So yes, we typically in our company we go through a process of annual planning and we set the goals for our company. And the market's a little volatile right now. It's making it setting the goal pretty difficult because to do so you kind of have to look at your cash stack, cash flow management, this and that. A lot of investment firm has also have been, reducing their workforces, right? Like, a lot of institutions that we talk to that have cut their resources, this and that. There's also some like, tech company we all know that they have layoffs and etc. So we try not to do that, but we have to kind of look at that from the budget mindset. So we do have goals. It's a long-winded ways to answer the question, but we do typically have goals set for the whole year. I think for this year, we kind of want to set not just quantitative goals, but also some qualitative goals. Because when you going through a fast-paced growth, like what we did experience the past couple years, you need a minute to kind of catch up and then revamping your system so that you get ready for the next stage of growth. So I think we want to set our Q1, Q2 goals to be quite around operation excellency, all pillars of our company, like acquisition, operations, and finance, and any of that. So we have a system kind of going forward. We do have system, but they can be a lot more improved. And I think while markets kind of taking a cooling down, we're still out looking for deals. Don't get me wrong, very actively, but the chances of getting the deal done is a little bit lower. So it's a really great time to take a break from that, not necessarily break, like we're still keeping on, but focus on building some other system so that way we can kind of be very proactive and get ready to go towards the second half of the year, where I think there's going to be a lot more opportunities in the market for purchasing and acquisition. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. I got
So
a
answer your question, we do have a goal of maybe like 150 to $200 million acquisition more, which is a little bit less than actually last year's number, but we also know that there's a lot of operation excellence goals that we have set for this year. Yeah.
phenomenal. At this level that you're at, Elisa, do you do any underwriting on your own, or are you like, do people underwrite for you and then you're like they filter it and then it comes to you for like the final look? How does underwriting work at your level?
Yeah, we have data analyst. We hire some overseas data analyst as well. And then we also have our acquisition manager. So they do the first batch of underwriting, filling the data. Our data analyst fill the data. So that's the first batch. And my acquisition manager reviews them. Anywhere in between, there's actually a director of acquisition as well. So it has to go through a various, but I do look at every deals that we decide to purchase. And I also still pretty hands-on with like making LOIs and etc. with the team. I think in the future, what we like to set up this year is also investment committee where you're actually having not just my own set of eyes looking on it, but have a different set of eyes looking on it, creating a committee on this. So in that case, for example, my CFO may be looped in, verifying this, and my asset manager will have a piece that they would need a review, specifically like budgets, making sure expenses are online. It just adding some more checkpoints to make sure the deals are super solid that we bring to our investors. Yeah.
Cool. I like it. Now, another question on this same kind of topic. How do you source deals, or do you go direct to seller? Is it all broker relations, and are you only still focusing on Dallas and Arizona? Or sorry, Texas and Arizona?
Yes. So we are currently still very busy with Texas and Arizona deals. So we're still focused on that. We are open to look at a new location, but we feel like, we only have 2 deals in Texas. I think there's a lot more opportunity in Texas. So we like to kind of go back to Texas because we started with Dallas and then sold some of these deals now and then get into Arizona. I think we have quite a bit deal in Arizona right now, like a 16 total. That's a pretty good portfolio sizes. So now maybe like going back to Texas, but a different market, look at some of the things. We are focused on San Antonio, Austin, San Antonio corridor, and also very niche area of Houston. And, we are kind of potentially looking for to identify a third location. I think these two market keeps our hands pretty busy. I think when we're coming to a point where we don't have enough deal leads, then we may be looking at setting up a different location. But setting up a different location also takes the team, diverges our focus, right? So that's a lot of calorie to consumed. So I'm not no promises that we're gonna stay in these two market only this year. It's possible we can add another location, but also there's no intentionally looking for that third location right now. Yeah.
Got it. And as far as deal flow, is it mainly through brokers?
Yes, we find in multifamily, for other assets, maybe it's a different method, but for multifamily, like broker relationships is the most efficient way to get deal done because your broker's out there connecting with the seller. And some of the broker will have really good relationships and they're like kind of like the gorilla in the market. So you really get the best of them and any deals that they will have like 20-year history on that. And they can tell you who is still bought by any really broker that's really good can tell you that with any given property. So really, it would be much more efficient use to hire your broker to do that versus and focus on building broker relationships because that creates a one-to-many relationship versus contacting owner directly. And the size of the unit we're looking at, some of the deals are 300 units and whatnot. At that level, it's not likely a institutional seller is going to say, yeah, we're going to entertain a piece of mail, like, mail marketing campaign or this and that, right? On smaller asset, that could be a strategy for people, like less than 100 unit, less than 50 unit.
Right.
That could be a strategy that could work for people. And in a different market, there could be in a competitive market like Phoenix or Texas, you'd be best spend your time working with the broker. But in the Southeast, for example, you may get a little bit more fruitful results from contacting owner directly.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, Lisa, I kind of wanted to ask you, I know we're kind of short on time here. Yikes. But I wanted to ask you about your Easy FI. What is that?
So we have, since the COVID, it's always my dream to help other people with financial literacy. So since COVID happened, that was my 5 year ago. It was like, well, why don't I just try something now? So since then, we have published a beta program, which is invitation only, for other people who are interested getting into their next stage of FI goals, specifically around how multifamily investing can kind of help them both be in the being an active investor or a passive investor, right? And getting their financial set properly, because passive investment is through all these conversations I have with hundreds of investors. The passive investment is really not just about the investment, but it's also setting up your other financial vehicles properly. So oftentimes my investor literally asks me a whole bunch of questions, which I'm not privy. I always say disclaimer, I'm not a CPA, but these are maybe some strategy I come across with. Go ask your CPA about it. These type of topic, we'll be spending time 50 minutes in our 1 hour call discussing that. And then the 10 minutes will be like, so what about this investment? Oh, okay. I would just put whatever in there, right? So conversation is kind of funny, like happen that way, especially repeat investors. So for me, I wanted to start a course or start a resources for people to kind of learn more about fiscal literacy, financial literacy. So that's where Easy FIU was born. And then we actually have some pretty exciting things that we're planning this year. We want to launch at least one course that we've been working on forever, a passive investor course for people to learn about not just how to passive invest or how to value a deal, but also it integrated the mindset goal setting for your own life trajectory, kind of making that more integrated piece in there. So that course is going to probably launch Q2 of this year. And then we're also kind of doing a beta program right now, invitation only again, to help people to kind of learn how to, like some of my passive investors or my partners over the years has been interested, how do I get into syndication? So kind of teaching them about specifically about how to raise capital, how to raise equity, because that was a most challenged piece in the syndication world. Everything else can kind of be handled through transaction, lawyers and third party, professionals. But this piece is always things that really puzzling. We see a lot of people kind of teaching the how to do, lead gen, how to do that. But what we also want to introduce is like, hey, there's different styles raising money. You have to pick one that is suit to you. And then even if you're already doing that, how do you actually make your sales pitch a little bit more sharp that's more authentic to yourself? So my head of equity, Jonathan, is going to be heading up that effort. And then we have organically already kind of helped a number of our folks over the years to kind of get to that position where they can raise better, where they can, actually go out there and make a pitch. So these are things that we want to focus on with Easy FIU. Yeah.
Awesome. Elisa, you're doing some really cool stuff. Really excited for you and your business and your vision and your family and just everybody that you're working with. Really excited. We're going to
Yeah.
transition to our final question, and then I'm going to get people some form of contacting you. So first, let's imagine it was 100 years from now. You now have great-great-grandchildren, and they want to write a book about you. What would you want them to title this book?
I think something around, intentional thoughts, like dream, then achieve, something like that. Maybe it would be a good title because, we really come from just, no family backgrounds or anything. How do you actually be a self-made person, entrepreneur, which takes both the mindset and the ability to dream big and execution and surround yourself with the right people. So I think that's like the biggest the things that I can offer to the world if someone write a book about me, and I think of the entrepreneurship, the products that you invest, the products that you create can pivot over time. But I think what's constant is the way of building your business and the way that you hire people, the way that you interact with people, and how do you actually build a business from there. I think you can use that skill sets in a much more variety way. Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful, Elisa. Thank you for sharing. All right, let's get the listeners some form of contacting you.
Yeah, so you can check us out at EasyFI University. So that's EZFI, spelled it out, university, which stands for, FI stands for Financial Independence.com. So EasyFIUniversity.com. Or you can find us on the YouTube, but just look up my name and then pick the one that with my profile pictures. And you can kind of check out some of our macroeconomics content on the YouTube as well. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Elisa. So I had a really nice time today talking with you and catching up and hearing everything that you're working on. Every time we speak, it's like you get me excited, number one, and then number two, it just blows my mind with how much you know and how far you've come. So I am really inspired by you and really happy we connected, and I can't wait to do it again.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Nico. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey, Small Axe community. I would like to say thank you for listening to another episode of this podcast where we show you how to use your small axe to build a lasting empire. Now, if you like what you heard, it would mean the world to me if you could leave me a 5-star rating and write a written review. Hey, let's take it one step further and share this podcast with someone that you feel could benefit from it. And until the next episode, keep sharpening those axes.